So this is what she'd be there for, making sure all implied covenants are followed by all and everybody's being treated fairly with all contracts involved. This is allowing due diligence for all. So this is what she'd be there, just so you guys understand the system, the court system, and how our deal interacts with it. The judge then makes sure that the conveyance is done in a fair and timely fashion. Once again, it's just the private sector who's putting the mortgage on is now having conveyance conditions for the bank and the bank lawyer to now go and find the note and, yes, exchange it for the money. And that is a very common thing that happens in every transaction. It's called proof of ownership, equity of redemption. Okay, and it's in the Bills of Exchange Act. But either way, let's just keep it simple. And this is about conveyancing and the judge realizing what is happening. Okay, one thing she'll need to know, and she does, is the difference between financial institution to financial institution conveyance compared to private sector to financial institution conveyance. So once again, we touched on that, but this is just a quick other chart to show you. She would understand, oh wow, when money's being flipped around through um, the financial institutions as defined in the Bank Act, well, this would be considered an internal transaction. Well, she'd also know that, wow, these guys, I'm aware of the fact they went to the private sector, so they're now taking funds that is going into the financial institution system. Therefore, it is now an external transaction. Real, the real people making their money, putting it into a deal. Not really, it's really a lot of times in the bank system, fractioning, factoring, and these type of things that you almost get to make up money. But either way, it comes down to she understands, the judge, that this is a big difference. Private sector financial private sector to financial institution conveyance when compared to financial institution to financial institution conveyance. She understands it's a big deal. If it is private sector to financial conveyance, she would handle it appropriately. She would understand it, and away we go. So this is what she would be doing to handle it appropriately. The judge would realize this is no longer an internal transaction, and we are asking via the first contract, equity of redemption is executed. So we're asking for it as you being the seller, us being the buyer. We create contract law, and within contract law, we've asked for proof of ownership, equity of redemption. And any third party financer that does not comply would be considered impeding commerce, okay? Once again, we're going to keep this very simple. The judge would know that, and this is how our system works throughout the court system. The judge understands why, that it's no longer an internal transaction because, and she understands why we would ask for equity of redemption because we want to make sure we're giving our funds to the right person. If the bank sold the note, well, that means if we also give them our money, they'd get paid twice. We inform the judge that we are marketing the home to sell. Now remember guys, we are marketing the home to sell to an investor who's truly going to save the day. So one of these people, we're going to work hard for you and sell the home. So the judge realizes that we have every right to market the home and even obtain a profit and complete a deal, okay? So she understands that we have every right because we're on title now to sell the home. And when we sell it, this is the individual who's going to let you stay in it, okay? So we sell the home, and look at that. We succeeded. We found the investor for you, the for sale, the person in foreclosure that says yes, I'm going to let them stay in the home, and we have them tied a contract and everything like that. Okay, but look at that. We sold the home, so that's great news. That would mean now court three we're calling, because we're now calling court three, making an application to court and communicating with the lawyer, saying, guys, we asked for the original note, and now we also went as far as selling the house. We need the original note. So this is why we're calling court three. We would call court three and tell them, hi judge, we sold the home to the investor. And the judges would know that we have every right to sell the home, and here is the individual. So we sold the home to the investor, and we'd explain that to her in court three. We'd also she'd also realize that the investor had every right to buy it, and of course he doesn't have cash, and if he has cash, he would not need a mortgage. But how many people these days have cash to go buy a home, right? So the judge would realize that now the investor needs financing and he goes to the private sector. And the private sector now wrote a mortgage and has every right to write a mortgage with you. Not only banks, the private sector, every one of us have the right to place a mortgage on a home. So yes, he went to the private sector and they wrote a mortgage. So the judge understands all this. Now please note, this investor will complete a rental agreement with you, or in some cases, like we said, a rent to own. Now, you stay in the home. This is the number one thing. So, you're not displaced from friends and family, but, more importantly, is your kids are not displaced from school and the friends and that type of thing. So we've created a real win-win-win situation here for everybody involved, okay? So this is something important for you to understand. The only person we sell this to, and it's all via contract, is somebody who would let you stay in the home, okay? The lawyer openly communicates and discovers how to get the rightful entities. If the bank sold it, remember, they wouldn't be the rightful entities for us to send the money to. We'd have to send it to the person they sold it to. So we would discuss this for basically discover, they call it, how to do this, right? Now, court three, everyone is now in attendance. 5 different entities now is at court. So in court 1, you're pretty lonely and it's pretty scary. Court 2, we were there with you. And now court 3, there's 5 different entities. Of course, we're including the bank lawyer in that one, in that count. But really, there's 4 of us, and there's the bank, and we're all pretty much on the same side trying to making the deal go. We really want our deal to go, because it's a win-win-win-win situation for everybody. Now the judge is there and she sees that, wow, 5 people in attendance. This is very, very, very different than what she sees in a normal foreclosure case. Usually it's just the foreclosure people who show up to court. Now there's 5 entities that have showed up. I mean, in general, it's really only the lawyer that shows up to court and nobody even there to defend. Now there's 5 entities there. Well, the judge there would know that there's this thing called a special session, and she would go, wow, compared to the norm, this is special, because the norm is that only the bank lawyer shows up, right? So, I mean, in general, there's like 50 foreclosures in one court session, so in about a 3-hour court session, and 48 lawyers show up and only 2 defendants. So basically, only 2 lawyers would go up against people, much less have 5 entities there. So the judge understands that this is a special session, excuse me, and in a special session, it is 3 hours per session, and hours will go multiple sessions, okay? So just so you understand, that's why our deal is so special, is because we've raised the money, and the conveyance conditions allows you, the homeowner, to ask some questions you need answered, such as, are you the right person for closing on me? So now the bank lawyer asks the bank for the paperwork, as we said. Now, guys, please keep in mind, this whole special is really the bank's fault. It's they are the one that are really delaying everything. We asked them for some simple paperwork, and the lawyers in the bank are now kind of taking a little too long. So now we have called a special session. And the private sector, that's anybody, can now show up and sit in the courtrooms, and it's 3 hours long, so it's be worth your time while, and it's very, very informative and very fascinating, actually. Now, if the bank cannot find the original note, the original signature, the original debt, well, we'll deal with that at the special session and act appropriately. So all of us would be in the court, and it will be heard in a controlled manner where everyone is allowed due process. So that's really how the court system would handle this, a fair court system. So due process for all, and just so you have some understanding of one, where you are now, and then when you bring it to a fair court system and you implement our deal, it follows through really nicely.